Buenas tardes, ese es el abogado Javier Perez con nuestro podcast de Nuestro Campeón. Estoy aquí con el presidente de Mountain View College, doctor Macario Hernandez. Gracias por estar aquí con nosotros. We're glad to have you, Dr. Macario Hernandez. Thank you for being here. We are here today live at the Hispanic Mental Health Conference of Caneta Foundation, and this year's focus, as you and I have been discussing, is men's mental health.
Right.
And so we're so thankful that Mountain View was able to support this effort. I understand you all have hosted this conference here each of the last 3 years.
That's right. Right.
That's
In
fantastic.
the third year, and every year it seems to keep growing. So I would say today we hit probably one of the biggest groups, and just, and also people from all the way from New York, California. I mean, this is not, that's how big this issue is, right? That even though it's Texas, but they're coming from all over just to support. So it's pretty incredible.
Absolutely. So thank you for supporting this event. We're glad to be a part of it this year. I want to kind of set the table here. So let's start with kind of your current role and how you got there.
Well, this is my neighborhood, right? I've been here my whole life. I do have a deep history in Dallas. My grandfather had probably the first, it's called Hernandez Mexican Foods down in Little Mexico. Now, that's all changed now. So, and then, this is during the Great Depression. So I kind of come from a lineage of community work and so for us, we're real grassroots. And for me to be here, we migrated to Oak Cliff, this area. And I was a student in this building,
Wow.
30 years ago. I'm probably 31 now, but about 30 years ago, I was walking these halls, not knowing where I wanted to do with my life. Graduated from Sunset High School. Shout out to them, the 100-year anniversary.
That's right.
This weekend we got a big celebration happening there. But for me, just being able to call this place home, in the mid 1990s, in a time where there was a lot of issues, there was a lot more going on in this community, even more so now, but it's still the same demographics, a lot of same socioeconomic backgrounds. And so, Mountain View was, Dallas College Mountain View was kind of like a haven of hope for a lot of people like myself.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah, this full circle for me, now serving I'm just truly humbled to be the president, from a student to president. I still have, I think I still have like 3 professors that are still teaching here. And so, it's special to see them in the hallways. It's special to know, and we have a great relationship. But just that full circle, I also was a principal here at Early College High School too, down here in the second lower level. But and it's a family affair. My daughter's a student here, both at the Early College and at Mountain View. So
that's fantastic. That really, I mean, you couldn't get more full circle than that. And what a treat to get to go from answering to your professors to them answering to you, huh?
Right. You really can't beat it. And, and that's been the story of my life, my research, even for my doctoral studies at UT Austin. That's always been grow your own. I always say, some of the answers to our community are in our own backyards. That's always been my philosophy. I think you'd be surprised of how much wealth, when I'm talking about, we're not talking financial, we're talking about just community, family,
yeah,
and community, how we come together. There's so much wealth in our communities.
I love that. And I think kind of one of the things we're trying to do is recognize the real treasures we have in the community, the stakeholders, the everyday people that really make this a wonderful place to live, raise a family, and support one another.
That's right.
So talking about that community support, I know you referenced in your remarks earlier today that you all had your own event, I think, that was focused on mental health here at the college.
Oh yes, no, we've had multiple ones. Even there's one coming up here with veterans too. That's hyper focused on veterans mental health. But there's a passion, but a lot of our passion comes from experiences, right? From our lived experiences, right?
Absolutely.
And so we notice like the need for specifically male mental health support, right? And we don't even use mental health. We use, for our events, we use the word wellness. I love today we use the words healing.
Yeah.
Because even the branding and even the language, the stigma of the word mental health can even keep us from even attending something like this.
Right.
But today, to me, you don't understand, like, just all the emotions. And this has been a dream that, it was just started with this discussion that we need to really bring out the need for focusing on men's mental health, knowing that the if you just look at this, this is suicide awareness month, right? We're still here in September, and we have at least 5 to 6 times more suicide rate higher than females, right? And so, but we don't, when we comes to like getting the supports and actually making it a focus, I mean, there's not enough of that going on. So this is a very special day and a very special moment.
That's really, really nice to hear, especially because even just to talk about it out in the open,
Yeah.
right? Even just that is significant.
Yeah.
Much less to really address it and call it the elephant in the room or what have you. Something that we all know to be true, right? That it is traditionally not acceptable for men to have feelings, maybe have feelings other than anger, which is a feeling.
Right.
But to kind of acknowledge that, the things in your life affect you, it doesn't make you weak to acknowledge them, because not acknowledging them doesn't mean they're not there.
That's right.
And so I really, hats off to you for, using your platform to support that and bring light to that, because it is so important. Some of the other speakers today were talking about how, historically, right, we've been conditioned into that, men need to be hard and tough because they need to protect their families. And then expecting them to be a completely different person at home is a really, that's a 180-degree difference. And so I wonder if you can talk a little bit about kind of in your time at the college, you're dealing with youth and a very formative part of their life. How have you seen kind of I guess mental health or wellness as a challenge or kind of something to rise to among your student body?
Well, I did almost 23 years and even K-12, and to me, we got this, I won't name the word, right? We got this national thing. I was in DC and they asked me if I had all the money and money wasn't an option, where would I put, where's our greatest need in education across the spectrum? And I said 2 words: mental health. And what I mean by that is that I'm talking about elementary, middle, high, post-secondaries, high school. I mean, we're talking about like at all levels. Unfortunately, our counselors in the K-12 world, for example, they're overwhelmed with paperwork and other, we have high stakes kind of testing that kind of keep them from really being able to sit down and have those true hard conversations with the students, right? And so the need is greater than I think. And I think that's what, in a way, we go back to COVID, that it really, you can see you got magnified the need of
Absolutely, it did.
but now at the college level, you got to imagine this is a pivotal part of their life, right? They're trying to figure out what life is. My speeches are not your traditional ones. I tell people sometimes they understand when I say I'm goalless, and I also, what I mean by that is that it's okay not to know where you're going at a certain age, because what happens is, because of the social constructs, the social pressures, or what you're seeing in social media, you think that you start living these multi kind of realities where you're thinking that you have to be what you see on these, on our phones now every day and everything. And what that does, that creates kind of an anxiety for this generation, right?
Yeah.
And for us, for anybody, it could be any generation. It says you start really thinking that that's what you have to, where that's not the way the real world is, right? There's certain ways to get to where you need to be. So I tell kids all the time, look, you're going to have different career options. You're going to have different opportunities. The goal is to, focus on the present. I learned this from, my own therapist. He said, you got the past, the present, the future. The only thing that's actually real is what's in front of you right now, the present, this moment. And
Wow. Yeah.
and so, I got that from my own therapist, and it really, I try to focus on that, but I try to share it with the next generation, because this thing of having to have some special prescribed or kind of scripted plan to life,
Yeah.
you'll stress so much about thinking about where you need to be that that ends up impacting your mental well-being. When it's just an example.
No, I think that sounds 100% true. If anybody thinks about that, right? Like if you're veering off the defined path, all that does is stress you out, and you might miss something that's even better than what you had, what was supposed to be what you're doing or whatever path you're on. So being quote unquote goalless opens you to really being present.
Right.
So that's a really cool idea. And I guess, to your point about, K-12 and counselors being burdened with or responsible for so many administrative tasks, my sense of this just anecdotally is that their bandwidth for dealing with mental health, the well-being of the wellness of the student body is just like at the margins. And when kids are in crisis and there's really, really like emergency situations. But I guess in an ideal world where money was no object and you would kind of focus that mental health, what does that look like in your mind? Like what would counselors be doing? Would there be more of them? How would you see that being more effective?
Well, I think that, I mean, just to look at you and I here, right? I don't have I didn't go to school didn't study, psychiatry or psychology or anything of that nature, right? I don't have a mental health background.
Likewise.
Specialist, right?
Right.
I'm in education, you're in the legal field, right?
Right.
But look at our passion for this topic, right? So today, I think is a huge step to answering that question in that we have actual professionals here, right?
Right.
We have actual experts, and we're trying to learn from them too. I'm trying to be in some of these sessions so that I can learn too, how do I help and be part of this important need? And I think that's one that we can also, even though we may not have the background, we need to try to learn from those that do have the background so that we are having the right discussions. And what I called, in my research, I called them micro interactions. I think he talked about it today, and he used different words. But these micro interactions, from saying what's up to somebody in this hallways, is very different in how you say it. In those, it's like a different dialect. If you know how to connect to the community, it makes a huge difference in the people you're trying to serve. And so just understanding those nuances, understanding that even the way you interact on a very daily basis can impact. Look, I'll be honest with you, in my mid 40s, I'm just being transparent, because anytime I talk about mental health, I got to be vulnerable, and I'm going to be vulnerable right now.
Sure, please.
And I realized almost 3 or 4 years ago that, my life, you gotta understand, it's all been work since, I was probably the one paying most of the bills even towards the end of high school. That took care of my parents, elderly. You get married, you have kids, and now you have to take care of the kids. It's like, but I used to make fun of the word self-care. I used to make fun of the stuff. I'm not gonna lie. I grew up right here in the hood, and so we say, oh man, that's for the gentrifiers, bro. They know how to they know how to do that yoga. They know how to do that.
It's a luxury.
It's a luxury. But what I realized now, late in life, here almost near 50, right? That I realized how important it is. It's changed my speeches. It's changed the outlook on how important self-improvement and self-care is. I've tried to get that to the next generation anytime I have that opportunity to let them know to invest in themselves.
Yeah.
Because I found out late, it's like, that's great. Everybody's getting taken care of around me, talking about males, especially, in a lot of males, they just do the work, right? They provide, they're providers. We do, but no one has ever asked them, are you okay?
Yeah.
Or do we, when we're watching a football game, we're all into it. We don't, after the football game though, before you head home, do we ask each other, how you doing though?
Yeah.
And we have to change that.
Yeah. I mean, it is. And I think maybe the encouraging aspect of that is I feel like, it feels maybe unusual or unfamiliar, but the intent is there, right? You do watch the game with your boys that you really care about. You really care about what happens to them, what's going on with them, and you'll be there for them in the ways that we've been taught to be there for people, supporting them, right? Somebody loses a job, I can help you out. But expanding, growing the ways that we can do the things that are important to us in terms of taking care of those around us. But I think to your point about, those micro interactions, and as well as like the relationships that you already have, I think it's important to recognize the power of modeling. I'd like to hear your perspective on that, because I think it's really significant to have someone with your platform modeling that it's okay to be vulnerable, modeling that, look, I'm a successful person, and you may not want to admit it, but I'm a successful person that people look to. I'm an influential person. I have a platform, and I'm going to show that it's okay to acknowledge, mental health or well-being or whatever you want to call it as an important issue, and shedding light on that in particular for men, for someone that to show that it's okay, that you don't have, because I think it comes off different, right, when you're talking about like, no, that's for rich people,
Right.
that kind of stuff, but to show somebody who has sort of the credentials that can still say, be vulnerable and say, look, man, you got to take care of one another, and that includes, being there for your boys, being there for your family, when not just physically.
No question. About a few months ago, as we were continuing this work with mental health, I was with a small group. I'm a padrino, a godfather for a group of young Latino professionals, C3, right? And so, they're young. They've just got they're getting in the world, and they're trying to figure things out. Some are barely starting to have children, or some are considering it.
Yeah.
But, nobody was talking, right? We were in the table, and I said, all right, I figured this out. Probably a few months in. In amongst males, somebody has to go first. If not, I promise we would sit there for hours staring at each other.
That's right.
So I decided to go.
Uh-huh.
And remember, a lot of those are my mentees for years. I was either their teacher or their principal or something, and but they see me as, just like you said, this perception. Oh my God, he's got it together, dude. He just keeps making moves, money, like they get in the hood, money moves, right?
That's right,
Just keeps
that's
making
right.
he keeps moving in these different roles. Man, if you had seen the way they reacted to the way I grew up, the how I dealt with, and the stress of even when I work on my doctoral studies, and that I dealt with, some depression,
Yeah.
and then I had to get a therapy. They were in shock, but what it did, outside of them being surprised, that they started sharing, they started becoming vulnerable. There was a lot of emotions in the room. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah.
But then that just opens a door to those deep conversations of really truly being there for each other.
Yeah.
So I share that. I share that all the time, that when you're in that space, and sometimes someone of our experiences, or someone with our background, sometimes we have to go. You're such a successful attorney. You've got a great background. Sometimes it has to be us, right?
Yeah.
Because they would never expect that we would be vulnerable.
I mean, that's very powerful to acknowledge, right? And I mean, I like the way you put that. Like sometimes that's a way to lead, right? To go first, but go first into something that's not, um, you know, that has traditionally been perceived as weak,
Right.
right? And I think kind of leading on that and be like, no, ain't no one calling me weak,
Right.
but I'll show you that this is a form of strength, to acknowledge the reality of the complexity of who we are, and that we all have, better days and worse days. And it's only natural that the stuff that we go through, especially when, you have a job with a lot of stress, where the stakes are really high, that's going to take a toll. And, I forgot where I heard this, but you've heard the phrase, like, you can't pour from an empty cup. When I heard that, I was like, oh, thank God. I'm over here with a bone dry cup and feeling bad about it.
Right.
And recognizing, like, you got to take care of yourself. And part of that is recognizing when you yourself need some care.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. And that to me is like, you talked about leading by being a role model. You even talked about earlier that we got to be careful of, we wait for the big, when it gets bad, right? When it becomes even the word too late.
Yeah.
We got to be careful with that. I believe that what we're doing today, and our conversation even here today, and anybody wants to debate me with it, I'm ready to have the debate. It's life-saving work. I mean, we don't know. That's the thing, this is not a physical pain, right? This is not a pain that is visible. You can't see that, that I'm limping, or that I'm going through. You can't visibly see the pain that someone's going through. So you'll never know who's here today that we knew. Because after I opened up, now those mentees, they didn't just call me for advice about careers.
Yeah.
I got the calls at 11, midnight, say, hey man, I just need to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
What it does, it opens up for everybody to be there for each other. We don't know who's sitting in the room today talking about this topic, and you start feeling that you're not the only one, and that this is real.
Right. That's so powerful, to not be the only one.
That's right.
Yeah. And to your point about, getting those late night calls and that sort of thing, it's like an honor to be trusted with something like that, someone at their most vulnerable. And kind of like, it's scary to think about, you know, what did they do before they felt like they could?
Right.
They sat there and suffered and swallowed that down. And, none of us want that stuff to then be, affecting the way that we're interacting with people, with our families, people we care about. But if we don't deal with it, it inevitably does.
No question. And I think it's it's something that's always, it's like something that is constant. But I mean that you can't stop trying to work on yourself. That to me would even be a mistake, because even to this moment, you can't, we can always improve, right? And we can always try to become a better version of ourselves. The moment we say we have all the answers, that we're good, that's to me is where, the learning, the growing stops.
Yeah.
So it's an evolving process.
I just love that I don't know if you'll still consider yourself goalless when you've already ticked so many things off, but I do think like kind of maintaining that openness and that curiosity, and that I guess they call that a growth mindset. I'm going to use some words I may not fully understand, but it sound right.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
But being open to, that you don't have it all figured out, and always being open to learning something new from somebody new. I've kind of, when I talk to law students and that kind of thing, I'm like, don't ever count somebody out that you can't learn something from them.
Right.
And, I'm talking about anybody. I've learned some great things from people, looked up to a lot of people that, traditionally you would think it'd be the other way around.
Right.
And I really like that, and being open to what you can learn every day from the people you encounter.
Right. And I appreciate you sharing that. And I think you can learn, and even from, I would say, experiences. Yes, they're bad. You can categorize them bad or good, but at the end of the day, they're going to help you grow, which way they are.
Yeah.
It's how you react to them and what you're doing. And, I joke around with the word goalless, but really I say that because sometimes we standardize our future, right? And our students kind of look and want to think you have to do this, you have to do that. And you start meaning goals. I would say follow your passion and focus on the dream that you want to have. And to me, that kind of opens it up a lot wider, that there are no limits. Yeah, sure, you're going to meet deadlines. You're going to meet certain goals, specific things to get there, right?
Yeah.
But be careful in that you're chasing something that doesn't match where your passion is. And you know what? Take your lived experiences. I tell students all the time, don't be somebody you're not, because it's going to be harder to continue to live that life trying to be somebody you're not, because that also can affect you psychologically, right? Just be your true self, and your authentic self in whatever shape, form that is, and try to grow from there. But let that be your core.
I love that. That's, we have a thing I would say, a lot of times law students are wondering like, what practice area do I need to do so that I can get a job? A job, by the way, they're going to hate if it's not the right one.
That's right.
And, I'm like, don't chase money.
That's right.
You should find something that you're passionate about, because if you're passionate about it, you're going to be good at it. And if you're good at something, then the money will follow.
That's right.
And I think that, like, when I figured that out for myself, it's such a blessing to be able to do. And I imagine you feel similarly, but to get to do work that doesn't feel like work, to get to do something you're passionate about, that is its own reward, it's a real blessing. It's a real luxury, because, I'm sure we both have people in our families that don't get to choose the job that they love. They did the job that allowed them to support their family and enable the next generation to have this blessing.
No question.
But, on that note, we are running a little short on time.
Cool.
I would love, if we have listeners that want to kind of follow you and everything that you're doing, you want to share all your credentials, how they can follow you.
Yeah, I mean, I will be honest with you. I can't remember if I've ever posted anything, but people do help me. I'm working on that.
Yeah.
But I am out. I'm Mac O'Cliff.
Love it.
I know. Mac O'Cliff is my.
And you snagged
I know.
that handle, huh?
I did. And so you can find me there. And if you find my name, Macario Hernandez, you'll probably find me on Facebook or something. But but for me, for me, it's about relationships and just keeping them authentic. And I think we can all learn from each other, no matter what our backgrounds are.
Love it. Love it. Thank you for being here with
Thank you,
us.
sir.
Yeah.